The 12 Chairs by Ilf and Petrov, Chapter 26, Two Visits. Like an unswaddled babe that clenches and unclenches its waxen fists without stopping, moves its legs, waggles its cap-covered head the size of a large Antonov apple, and blows bubbles, Absalom Vladimirovich Izhnarenkov was eternally in a state of unrest. He moved his plump legs, waggled his shaven chin, produced sighing noises, and made gestures with his hairy arms as though doing gymnastics on the end of strings. He led a very busy life, appeared everywhere, and made suggestions while tearing down the street like a frightened chicken. He talked to himself very rapidly, as if working out the premium on a stone iron-roofed building. The whole secret of his life and activity was that he was organically incapable of concerning himself with any one matter, subject, or thought for longer than a minute. If his joke was not successful and did not cause instant mirth, Izhnarenkov, unlike others, did not attempt to persuade the chief editor that the joke was good and required reflection for complete appreciation. He immediately suggested another one. "What is bad, he used to say, and that's the end of it." When in shops, Izhnarenkov caused a commotion by appearing and disappearing so rapidly in front of the salespeople and buying boxes of chocolates so grandly that the cashier expected to receive at least 30 rubles. But Izhnarenkov, dancing up and down by the cash desk and pulling at his tie as though it choked him, would throw down a crumpled 3-ruble note onto the glass plate and make off, bleeding gracefully. If this man had been able to stay still for even as little as 2 hours, the most unexpected things might have happened. He might have sat down at a desk and written a marvelous novel, or perhaps an application to the Mutual Assistance Fund for a permanent loan, or a new clause in the law on the utilization of housing space, or a book entitled How to Dress Well and Behave in Society. But he was unable to do so. His madly working legs carried him off, the pencil flew out of his gesticulating hands, and his thoughts jumped from one thing to another. Izhnarenkov ran about the room, and the seals on the furniture shook like the earrings on a gypsy dancer. A giggling girl from the suburbs sat on the chair. Ah, cried Absalom Vladimirovich. Divine! First rate, you are Queen Margot. The queen from the suburbs laughed respectfully, though she understood nothing. Have some chocolate, do. Charming. He kept kissing her hands, admiring her modest attire, pushing the cat into her lap, and asked fawningly, "He's just like a parrot, isn't he? A lion, a real lion. Tell me, isn't he extraordinarily fluffy? And his tail, it really is a huge tail, isn't it?" The cat then went flying into the corner, and pressing his hands to his milk-white chest, Absalom Vladimirovich began bowing to someone outside the window. Suddenly a valve popped open in his madcap mind, and he began to be witty about his visitor's physical and spiritual attributes. "Is that brooch really made of glass? What brilliance! Honestly, you dazzle me. And tell me, is Paris really a big city? Is there really an Eiffel Tower there? What hands! What a nose!" He did not kiss the girl. It was enough for him to pay her compliments, and he talked without end. The flow of compliments was interrupted by the unexpected appearance of Ostap. The smooth operator fiddled with a piece of paper and asked sternly, "Does Izhnarenkov live here? Is that you?" Absalom Vladimirovich peered uneasily into the stranger's stony face. He tried to read in his eyes exactly what demands were forthcoming, whether it was a fine for breaking a tram window during a conversation, a summons for not paying his rent, or a contribution to a magazine for the blind. "Come on, comrade," said Ostap harshly. "That's not the way to do things, kicking out a bailiff." "What bailiff?" Izhnarenkov was horrified. "You know very well. I'm now going to remove the furniture. Kindly remove yourself from that chair, citizeness," said Ostap sternly. The young citizeness, who only a moment before had been listening to verse by the most lyrical of poets, rose from her seat. "No, don't move," cried Izhnarenkov, sheltering the chair with his body. "They have no right." "You better not talk about rights, citizen. You should be more conscientious. Let go of the furniture. The law must be obeyed." With these words, Ostap seized the chair and shook it in the air. "I'm removing the furniture," said Ostap resolutely. "No, you're not." "What do you mean I'm not? When am I?" Ostap chuckled, carrying the chair into the corridor. Absalom kissed his lady's hand and, inclining his head, ran after the severe judge. The latter was already on his way downstairs. "And I say you have no right. By law, the furniture can stay another 2 weeks, and it's only 3 days so far. I may pay." Izhnarenkov buzzed around Ostap like a bee, and in this manner they reached the street. Absalom Vladimirovich chased the chair right up to the end of the street. There he caught sight of some sparrows hopping about by a pile of manure. He looked at them with twinkling eyes, began muttering to himself, clapped his hands, and, bubbling with laughter, said, "First rate, what a subject!" Engrossed in working out the subject, he gaily turned around and rushed home, bouncing as he went. He only remembered the chair when he arrived back and found the girl from the suburbs standing up in the middle of the room. Ostap took the chair away by cab.
"Take note," he said to Ippolit Matveyevich. "The chair was obtained with my bare hands for nothing, do you understand?"
When they had opened the chair, Ippolit Matveyevich's spirits were low.
"The chances are continually improving," said Ostap, "but we haven't a kopeck. Tell me, was your late mother-in-law fond of practical jokes by any chance?"
"Why?"
"Maybe there aren't any jewels at all."
Ippolit Matveyevich waved his hands about so violently that his jacket rode up.
"In that case, everything's fine. Let's hope that Ivanopoulos' estate need only be increased by one more chair."
"There's something in the paper about you today, Comrade Bender," said Ippolit Matveyevich obsequiously. Ostap frowned. He did not like the idea of being front-page news.
"What are you blathering about? Which newspaper?"
Ippolit Matveyevich triumphantly opened the lathe. "Here it is, in the section What Happened Today." Ostap became a little calmer. He was only worried about public denouncements in the sections Our Caustic Comments and Take the Malefactors to Court. Sure enough, there in non-pare type in the section What Happened Today was the item Knocked Down by a Horse. Citizen O. Bender was knocked down yesterday on Sverdlov Square by horse cab number 8974. The victim was unhurt except for slight shock.
"It was the cab driver who suffered slight shock, not me," grumbled O. Bender. "The idiots, they write and write and they don't know what they're writing about. So that's the lathe. Very, very pleasant. Do you realize, Vorobyaninov, that this report might have been written by someone sitting on our chair? A fine thing that is."
The smooth operator lapsed into thought. He had found an excuse to visit the newspaper office. Having found out from the editor that all the rooms on both sides of the corridor were occupied by the editorial offices, Ostap assumed a naive air and made a round of the premises. He had to find out which room contained the chair. He strode into the Union Committee room where a meeting of the young motorists was in progress, but saw at once there was no chair there and moved on to the next room. In the clerical office he pretended to be waiting for a resolution. In the reporter's room he asked where it was they were selling the waste paper as advertised. In the editor's office he asked about subscriptions, and in the humorous sketch section he wanted to know where they accepted notices concerning lost documents. By this method, he eventually arrived at the chief editor's office, where the chief editor was sitting on the concessionaire's chair, bawling into a telephone. Ostap needed time to reconnoiter the terrain.
"Comrade editor, you have published a downright libelous statement about me."
"What libelous statement?" Taking his time, Ostap unfolded a copy of the lathe. Glancing round at the door, he saw it had a Yale lock. By removing a small piece of glass in the door, it would be possible to slip a hand through and unlock it from the inside. The chief editor read the item which Ostap pointed out to him. "Where do you see a libelous statement here?"
"Of course, this bit. The victim was unhurt except for slight shock."
"I don't understand." Ostap looked tenderly at the chief editor and the chair.
"Am I likely to be shocked by some cab driver? You have disgraced me in the eyes of the world. You must publish an apology."
"Listen, citizen," said the chief editor, "no one has disgraced you, and we don't publish apologies for such minor points."
"Well, I shall not let the matter rest at any rate," replied Ostap as he left the room.
He had seen all he wanted.